Today we're going to make a deep dish pan, baked macaroni and cheese. Everybody has their own ingredients. Today I'm using Mexican 4 cheese to make my creamy cheese. I'm going to use the Veleeta to add a little bit in it, but I'm really using it for the topping cheese. Some heavy cream, some sea salt, a little bit of paprika on the top, boiled egg, some butter. And I'm using large elbows because I just like how the cheese actually sinks in the elbows. For the proper amount of ingredients, everybody uses something different based on the pan you're using. For this deep dish pan, I'm going to actually put precisely what I use to make this particular dish in the description below. So just make sure you look out for that as well if you want to make it exactly the way I made it. As I said before, it's a deep dish pan. Don't know the exact specs, but you can get one of these deep dish pans at your, regular supermarket or so. So with that said, let's get started. When you put your large noodles in the pan, make sure you add water to it. The water's over the top. For this particular dish, I use 2 boxes of noodles. Make sure you cook this anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes. You don't want it to overcook because the noodles are going to continue cooking while it's being baked. Make sure you also use a decent amount of flame. You don't want to overboil your noodles as well. You can add some salt if you like. I use sea salt. You really want to get those tastes in your noodles as well as the rest of your baked macaroni and cheese. Make sure the lid is on and let that sit there from the 8 to 12 minutes. Once you're done with that, get your butter ready. I like to butter up my pan. I'll also throw some butter for my liquid cheese I'm going to be making. Make sure your temperature is at a medium to low. You don't want to burn anything when you make this. Make sure you throw your butter in there. Your butter melts perfectly. Once it's a little melted, what you're going to do is just throw the whole thing of heavy cream in there. I use heavy cream. Some people have their different alternatives for making liquid cheese, but I like the thickness. Throw a little bit of flour in there. The flour is definitely going to help with the thickness. You could throw 2 or 3 handfuls of cheese. You don't want too much. You don't want it to be too thick, but you don't want it to be liquidy as well. You want it to be nice and good. I like a little garlic in there. I feel like garlic just gives it that real rich taste. Once you do that, just make sure you stir everything. You don't want no bubbles. You don't want no thickness. Just keep stirring, and it's gonna come out just nice and cheesy. Like it's gonna be liquidy, but it's gonna have a little bit of cheese in there. Start buttering up your pan and get your pan ready for baking. Once your pan is done, just go back, check that liquid cheese. Look at this cheese. This is what I'm talking about. Make sure there's no bubbles. You don't want no thickness. Some people like their cheese thick. I like it just right in the middle, just right. I'm actually going to make more of this because it's a deep dish pan. So I'm just going to add evaporation milk. Evaporation milk is good for baking. Trust me, you're going to use all of this. Make sure you add some more cheese. You don't want it to taste like milk. You want it to be nice and cheesy. The liquid is going to melt right inside of the large noodles. It's going to be so good. Once you stir the cheese, make sure you go check the noodles. Look at those noodles. You want your noodles to be almost cooked but not fully cooked. They're going to cook when you bake them. You see that? That's how they're supposed to look. Make sure you stir them. Make sure all the noodles get cooked evenly. Once you're done with that, you're going to drain your noodles. Make sure all the water is out. Next, you're going to just crack an egg. Throw some eggs in that cheese. Make sure you stir it up well because that egg is going to help keep all the noodles together when you bake your macaroni and cheese. Trust me, this is definitely a key ingredient. After that, preheat your oven. Usually is around 350. I usually put it a little bit above that. Now, as I said before, I like my mac and cheese in layers. I'm going to do this in layers. Make sure you take your noodles, you put it in a pan, you layer it out with the spoon, you throw some cheese on that. Make sure that you're using a good amount of cheese. I had 2 bags of cheese originally. I needed actually 3 bags of cheese because this was a deep dish pan. But make sure you cover the corners. Some people love the corners of mac and cheese. Make sure you put the cheese all over the noodles. Make sure it's nice and covered. Trust me, this is going to be a good layered mac and cheese. So at this point, the liquid cheese you had cooking, you're going to take it, you're going to put a whole nice layer of liquid cheese. Make sure you cover everything. I added liquid cheese and another layer of noodles. I didn't record it, but you can see that's what I did. After I added those noodles, I added more cheese, shredded cheese, and then I added more liquid cheese. What you're going to do is make sure that when you're pouring that liquid cheese is nice and covered. You see how that's coming out? You want your cheese to be nice and creamy. When it bakes, it's going to bake nice and evenly. Trust me. Now for the second layer of cheese, I also had to make extra liquid cheese. I made a whole other pot. I didn't use heavy cream because I didn't have that much. But if you just use a little bit more evaporation milk and you can make your second pot of cheese if you need to, that's fine. That's why I say I needed an extra bag of cheese, but it was okay. I also needed an extra bag of cheese to cover the top as well. So what I was using Veleeta's cheddar cheese. Veleeta's cheddar cheese is going to top it nice. I only had that one bag, so I just made half and half. Threw some Kraft in it, added some Paprika for coloring, which is definitely good. You don't have to do it, but you could. As you can see, I added celery flakes to it just to give it that look when it bakes. Now you don't have to do this. All this is optional. Put your mac and cheese in the oven and bake it for about 25 minutes or so. Look how this mac and cheese came out after the fact. You see how one side was layered, the other side is still cooked, just nice and fresh. Now let's cut into this. Look how cheesy this mac and cheese is. First off, look at the outside, the topping. Look how good that is. You see how that paprika gave it color. You know, you have the celery flakes. You don't have to do it once more, but it just gave it a good texture on top. It's not hard. Remember I told you don't want to overcook your noodles. Look at this piece. Look how it comes out. Nice melted cheese. You see that? This is exactly what I'm talking about. If you guys can taste this, I'm trying to tell you. Let's just make sure we have all of that. Let's just make sure. Look at that texture again. I just want you to see this. This is real good texture as well. All right. We're going to taste it now. Just look at the texture of this mac and cheese. You see how that melts? You see how that falls? You see the outside texture as well? Trust me, people love when I make my macaroni and cheese. If you like my video, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, give me some thoughts, and check out my other content. Peace, y'all.